Welcome back. Hey, PMBOK Guide 6th edition has to be dissected. Let's jump into it. We're taking a look at our first grouping of tools and techniques. And this is called Data Gathering Tools and Techniques. We're looking at page 686. We're starting off with the first one. Remember, my job is to give you the skinny of it. I'm not going into the multiple paragraphs that are in the PMBOK Guide. Going to give it to you short and sweet. Now, in some instances, I will open up a chapter or two to demystify a few things, but for the most part, giving it to you short and sweet. Let's go. Benchmarking. Benchmarking has three things: products, processes, and practices. You can benchmark a product of another organization. You could benchmark a practice. You can benchmark a process, and you could use that benchmark as a basis for measuring your success, your progress, or how you've been able to adhere to a standard. You can use that as a measure. So when you think about benchmarking, think about comparing one of these things: product, process, practice, from a previous. Maybe it's a previous project in your firm. It could actually be from within that firm. You could benchmark from your own firm, or you could benchmark using an external firm's product, process, or practice. All right. Now, where is this talked about? You can see that it's mentioned in collect requirements. So you've got numbers. If you look at the table, you've got 5.2. What does that mean? It means you use this particular sub-technique. I call them sub-technique or sub-tool. You use this sub-technique in 5.2. 5.2 is collect requirements, all right? What about 8.1? You also use this in plan quality management. So I want you to begin to get used to the numbering. The numbering scheme is going to help you. This could be a very good review table for your exam. You can also see that this is used in 13.2. What is 13.2? Conduct. Not conduct. This is plan, I beg your pardon, stakeholder engagement. So those of you coming off from the 5th edition, hey, we need to mind our language. This is engagement, all right? So this is plan stakeholder engagement, 13.2. Now, you may often ask the question, what exactly are we benchmarking? In fact, some of these definitions may come across as a little bit far-fetched, I'm sorry to say. I mean, benchmarking, let me show you what I mean. Let's go to 13.2, and if you pay close attention to the PMBOK Guide, some things sound a little bit kind of far-fetched, or a little bit slightly off from what you would normally expect, right? So remember my definition of benchmarking. What are you benchmarking? Process, product, practice, right? Keep those in mind. So when you go over to 13.2 and you begin to look for what exactly you're benchmarking, let's take a look under data gathering. It says on page 520, it says a data gathering technique that can be used for this process, that is plan stakeholder engagement, includes but is not limited to benchmarking. Described in section 8.1.2.2, the results of stakeholder analysis are compared with information from other organizations or other projects that are considered to be world-class. Now, I'm not sure about how many organizations share their stakeholder data, which is why sometimes this could be far-fetched. But if in the same organization, that is absolutely possible. We could benchmark projects from our organization and use that to compare the practices of stakeholder engagement. So it says the results of stakeholder analysis are compared with information from other organizations. So not every organization shares its stakeholder analysis. So whenever you read this, why am I reading this to you? I know we're on the very first one, and I've almost spent 5 minutes, but I want to be very clear that in some tools and techniques, when you read them, it might seem far-fetched. Hey, think about examples, or think about fair exclusion. Say, for the most part, this could be excluded because a lot of companies don't share their stakeholder data. So it's likely that you cannot compare your stakeholder data with another organizations, but you can compare it with your organizations from other projects. Don't lose sight of what the definition really is, the core essence. For example, the core essence of benchmarking. All right, does that make sense? Let's move on. Brainstorming. Brainstorming is used to rapidly collect ideas, and these ideas could be brainstormed in a structured or unstructured manner. Now, for some of these, like I said, I am going to go to the glossary and just read to you. I mean, you know what brainstorming is, but we're warming up here. So we're going to take a look at some of these definitions of the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Brainstorming is pretty much generating ideas. Yeah, we know that. But let's see what the PMI has to say about it. And this is really hilarious. Believe it or not, I actually don't find brainstorming in the glossary. My, oh my. What have we got here? What have we got here? Am I really seeing right? Because I do not see brainstorming. Well, that goes out of the window. Let's go over to 4.1 where this was defined up front. So I'm going to go to 4.1 in my PMBOK guide. Take a look. And hopefully after this, we'll be moving along quite quick. All right, so brainstorming, it comes up in developing the project charter, developing the project management plan, collecting requirements, planning quality management, identifying risks, and in identifying stakeholders. So brainstorming under data gathering tools and techniques. So I am going to page 80, and it says, this technique is used to identify a list of ideas in a short period of time. It is conducted in a group environment and is led by a facilitator. Brainstorming comprises 2 parts, idea generation and analysis. Brainstorming can be used to gather ideas and solutions or ideas from stakeholders. So you already know what it is, but knowing the formal language in the PMBOK guide, it really helps. Let's go to 5.2 because this is a little bit more conclusive. So let's see what we've got in 5.2 under brainstorming. So again, this is under data gathering. It says, brainstorming is a technique used to generate and collect multiple ideas related to project and product requirements. Now, in addition to brainstorming, there's another important term that I would like to call your attention to. And for this slightly different definition, I would like to introduce you to something called brainwriting. And brainwriting is when these ideas are actually, or these questions that could generate ideas are actually planned in advance. So let's see if we've got this in the glossary. Brainwriting, page 511. Page 511. You ever heard that term before, brainwriting? Well, it's here in the PMBOK guide. Let's take a look. Brainwriting. All right, this is on page 511. It's under Identify Stakeholders, and it says, Brainwriting, a refinement of brainstorming that allows individual participants time to consider the questions individually before the group creativity session is held. So brainwriting is another term that you need to be aware of. All right, let's move on. This is going to go quite quick from here. All right, check sheets. Check sheets are also known as tally sheets, and check sheets are used to collect data. Hey, the key difference between a check sheet and a checklist is a check sheet is used to collect data. So for example, you are on a production lot, you run a bunch of deliverables, production, those deliverables come in batches, and you begin to investigate, you begin to inspect. Are these good? Oh no, there's a dent here, there's a hole here, there's a twist here. You could use a check sheet to begin to document how many defects were found and on what day and what is the nature of the defect. So your check sheet can actually be used to collect data. All right, next one, checklist. A checklist is like a memory jogger or a check to ensure that you have either inspected something or you have listed something. And for that reason, this checklist, we see this being used in a number of places. So I'm just going to read a few of these. Checklist is in 4.2, 8.2, 8.3, and 11.2. And 11.2 in identify risks, that is where you find the number bolded. So what does it mean when we have a number boldened under these knowledge areas? Well, what I found this to mean is that is the best place to get a definition, or it might be the focus, the focal point that is referred to throughout the PMBOK guide when that particular thing is defined. So it says, the bold-face entries indicate the section numbers of the processes where a tool or technique is described, but not really where it is described. Now, this is on page 694, but it's not really where it is described. It is, in my opinion, where it is described in the best detail or where it is most often referred to. So, for example, they would say under checklist, refer to 11.2, but that doesn't mean it's not discussed in some way in 8.2 or 8.3, for example, okay? So that's checklist. Focus groups, when you hear the word focus groups, we're talking about a set of key stakeholders. This is not just anyone. This is not a facilitated workshop. Focus groups are used to make big decisions, overarching decisions usually, and they form a basis for a lot of other things that may be coming. So you could get your core or key stakeholders together in a focus group. I like the definition in 5.2 most because of certain language that is used here for focus groups. So I'm going to read that language for you. The key word is pre-qualified or pre-selected, if you will. So let's read this on page 142. It says focus groups bring together pre-qualified stakeholders and subject matter experts to learn about the expectations. Okay, but I know we use this beyond collecting requirements, but I always like to think about this as an exclusive group. And it's important to know that your focus group is not just anyone. All right, interviews. Interviews are used to gather data by asking structured questions. It could be a structured interview, or it could be a free-form interview. And we use this to, again, collect requirements. 5.2 is the focal point. The next one is market research. We conduct market research to understand the conditions of the marketplace for certain reasons. Now, this is done in 12.1 in Planned Procurement Management. But why are we doing this? We want to know our options. We want to know what the state of the marketplace is. We want to know which vendors are out there. maybe even which technologies are out there. So let's take a quick read when it comes to market research under data gathering. It says on page 473, a data gathering technique that can be used for this process includes, but is not limited to, market research. Market research includes examination of industry and specific seller capabilities. Use your imagination. You could do market research for many reasons. All right, next one here, questionnaires and surveys. We send out questions and we send out surveys. Why? We're trying to glean data. All sorts of data, but let's take a look. 5.2 is where this is bolded, and it's bolded there because we send out questionnaires to glean requirements, surveys to glean requirements. We can also see here that this is used in 13.1 to identify your stakeholders. All right, next one here is statistical sampling. Why would we do a statistical sample? Because we want to choose at random a sample of the population for inspection. We don't have time or the ability, or perhaps it's just not our preference, to inspect 1 million widgets that came off the job badge that are going to different parts of the world. But if we do a sample, we could save time and money. Now, it's possible they're going to be outliers. There are going to be some that defy the sample activity. However, for the most part, if it's done well, it's going to save you a lot of time and money and effort. So 100% inspection could be the other option. Are you going to sample, or are you going to do 100% inspection? It's really up to you. But let's read here. 8.3. Let's read what the PMI tell us this sample is all about under data gathering. All right. So it says here, statistical sampling involves choosing part of a population of interest for inspection. I dare say, choosing part of a population of interest at random for inspection. Now, I added that from a previous edition, probably. For example, selecting 10 engineering drawings at random. Oh, there's the word. From a list of 75. So you kind of get the idea. All right. So that is statistical sampling. And that, folks, is our very first take on these tools and techniques. We've taken a look at benchmarking. Benchmarking is using practices, processes, remember, from a previous organization. Processes, practices, products from a previous organization as a basis for what we are working on. And that will enable us to measure progress or effectiveness. Brainstorming, used to generate ideas. Check sheets, used to record the data. Checklist, used to jog our memories about things such as risks. 11.2 is where this comes up. You have a checklist. Hey, it's going to remind you. If you thought of this, hey, this might be a very good one for us to hone in on. I actually didn't hit it like I should have. So we're going to take a quick look at what the PMI told us in 11.2. I think that may add some additional value to you. So under checklist, it says a checklist is a list of items, actions, or points to be considered. It is often used as a reminder. That's the big thing, reminder, all right? So if you've got a checklist from a previous project, using it on your current project is going to help you. It's going to jog your memory and say, hey, did you remember this? All right, focus groups, pre-qualified stakeholders, interviews. You're trying to gather information. It could be structured, it could be free-form, remember that. Market research, knowing what's out there in the marketplace, knowing the conditions, knowing the technologies, knowing what is new and emerging in the marketplace. Hey, that could help you. Some folks wanted to run an experiment to find out what is in the marketplace to help us create this particular widget. And after doing their little experiments going through the marketplace, they found a new technology that would save them hundreds of thousands. What technology was it? 3D printing. They were sure happy they had explored the marketplace. Always explore the marketplace, folks. Questionnaires and surveys, we've talked about that. Primary point is 5.2, and 5.2 is collect requirements, and we talked about statistical sampling, choosing part of a population of interest at random for inspection. And that concludes our very first video, taking a look at data gathering tools and techniques. When we come back, we're going to move to our next set of tools and techniques, data analysis. Hey, we've gathered the data, now let's analyze. I'll see you when we come back.